It's Monday. Okay, everybody, I guess we'll get started. It's a little after 2. As you know, I've been talking about the Erie Canal and the influence it had on, last time we talked about cobblestone construction. This time, I want to talk a little bit about the quarry industry. When the Erie Canal was first being dug, they discovered sandstone, a line of sandstone near Medina. Quote, Medina sandstone. And that was in the 1820s. And the canal was here, but really didn't get used economically for the better part of 8-9 years by the time everybody had their boats and everybody started to grow produce on their land they cleared because the canal was here. It took a while for everything to start going. But I thought this would be interesting for you to hear. This is a British man who visited the United States, and he traveled on the Erie Canal in 1829. It says, on the 25th of June, we drove across the country to the village of Rochester, which is built on the banks of the Genesee River, just above some beautiful waterfalls, and only a few miles from the southern shore of Lake Ontario, which I was sorry to find was not visible from then, owing to the dense screen of untouched forest. So north of the 104 was all forest yet. The Erie Canal passes through the heart of this singular village and strides across the Genesee River on a noble aqueduct of stone. And he goes on, I won't read you the whole thing, but the chief source of the commercial and agricultural prosperity of Rochester is the Erie Canal, as that village is made the emporium of the rich agricultural districts bordering on the Genesee River. And its capitalists both send out and import a vast quantity of wheat, flour, beef, and pork, and pearl ash and whiskey, and so on. In return for these articles, Rochester supplies the adjacent country with all kinds of manufactured goods, which are carried up by the canal from New York. In proportion as the soil is brought into cultivation or subdued, to use the local phrase, the consumers will become more numerous and their means more extensive. Thus, the demands of the surrounding country must go on argumentatively rapidly, and along with them, both the imports and exports of every kind will increase. Out of the more than 8,000 souls in the gigantic young village, there was not to be found in 1827 a single grown-up person born there, the oldest native not being then 17 years of age. So in that period of time, everybody was going in and building up Rochester. The population is composed principally of immigrants from New England, that is from the states of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Some settlers are to be found from other parts of the Union, and these, together with a considerable number from Germany, England, Ireland, and Scotland, and a few natives of Canada, Norway, and Switzerland, make a very singular society. So you can see in the 1820s, we already had a mixture of different countries represented in this area. On the 26th of June, 1827, we strolled through the village of Rochester under the guidance of a most obliging and intelligent friend, a native of this part of the country. Everything in this bustling place appeared to be in motion. The very streets seemed to be starting up of their own accord, ready-made and looking as fresh and new as if they'd been turned out of the workman's hand but an hour before. The canal banks were at some places still unturfed. The lime seemed hardly dry in the masonry of the aqueduct, in the bridges and the numerous great sawmills and manufactures. In many of these buildings, the people were at work below stairs, while atop the carpenters were busy nailing on the planks of the roof. This was written in 1829 by a British man traveling in the United States. This was before the sandstone. So you see, the Erie Canal had brought prosperity here already, and it was a matter of finding other things. The Erie Canal reduced shipping time from New York to Buffalo from 3 weeks to 8 days. The cost of shipping a ton of cargo from New York to Buffalo dropped from $90 to $4, bolstering trade along the canal. I think it was an economic plus. Yeah. Medina sandstone, this high-quality, durable building material, was discovered around the time of the canal's digging in the 1820s. It was quarried extensively in Orleans County, helping to establish the towns of Albion and Medina as major canal ports. So when they were digging the canal, they discovered Medina sandstone out towards Medina. They discovered this sandstone and they named it Medina after the village. The canal allowed for the easy transport of materials like Medina sandstone, which stimulated the local economy for more than a century. In turn, the thriving sandstone industry contributed to the diverse population of quarrymen from England, Ireland, Germany, and other countries in Orleans County. The canal in turn spurred a thriving industry around that high-quality sandstone, especially in Orleans County. The Medina sandstone in Orleans County, for example, was used for structures like culverts and curbing. Large stone blocks for the locks were cut and hauled into place by laborers. So the sandstone was used in the construction of the Erie Canal. And in using the sandstone, they found more and more as they reached out in their digging. They found a whole area of Medina sandstone. The Medina sandstone canal's infrastructure allowed the Medina sandstone industry to flourish over a century. Towns along the canal, such as Albion and Medina, thrived as ports for quarrying and exporting the valuable building stone. This stone was eventually shipped worldwide for use in famous buildings like the Brooklyn Bridge and the New York State Capitol. So the stone from Medina, because of the canal, was shipped away from here to help build places like in Albany, which is quite something. The Erie Canal accelerated the settlement of the Great Lakes region, the westward expansion of the United States, and the economic ascendancy of New York State. The quarries, especially along the canal, were significant sources of building and paving stone. The quarry industry, fueled by the canal's transportation, played a major part in the economic development of communities along the canal. The canal itself was built using stone from local quarries, and the stone was also used for building locks, aqueduct, and other structures along the canal's path. Excuse me. Stone from these quarries was not only used along the canal, but shipped to other cities for paving streets, building sidewalks, and constructing buildings. Medina sandstone was used extensively in street paving, curbs, and building construction. Orleans County, with its Medina sandstone quarry, saw a boom in quarrying industry during the peak of the canal construction. The canal's route through Lockport and Rochester, passing by gorges and creeks, facilitated access to stone resources for canal construction and other buildings. Hulberton and Brocksville along the canal were known for their quarries, with stone being shipped along the canal for various purposes. The Ohio and Erie Canal also used stone from quarries. And as time went on, and we had World War I, World War II, the importance of the canal and the stone grew less and less important. But it did, the Medina sandstone was used far and wide at the time it was mined. It was used for the Brooklyn Bridge, the New York State Capitol, and the Albany City Hall. It was discovered during the Erie Canal in the 1820s and one of the earliest documented uses of Medina sandstone was for St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Rochester in 1824. So we made a mark as early as the 1820s. The first commercial Medina sandstone quarry opened in 1837 in Medina. The industry boomed from approximately 1880 to 1910, employing 2,000 workers and operating nearly 50 quarries in Orleans County. So it was the industry at the time. That was where you got a job. Medina sandstone was used to construct a wide variety of buildings along the canal: churches, mansions, public buildings, curbing, street pavers, sidewalks, and beyond the local community, Medina sandstone was transported via the canal to major cities like Buffalo and even New York City, where it was used in structures such as the Brooklyn Bridge. So we even contributed to the building of the Brooklyn Bridge. The canal enabled the efficient shipment of Medina sandstone, which was used to build structures as far away as Buckingham Palace. The canal provided a crucial transportation route for quarry materials from the quarries in the areas like Hubbardton and Rockville. The quarrying industry, fueled by the Erie Canal, significantly impacted the economy in Medina and Orleans County, creating jobs and driving growth. While Medina sandstone was used for construction, it was also used for other purposes like curbing and culverts. The legacy of the Erie Canal and Medina sandstone can be seen in many historic buildings made of that durable stone. There is a rock-solid connection between the Buckingham Palace, the Brooklyn Bridge, the New York State Capitol buildings, staircase, and Buffalo's Richardson Homestead Complex. All of those have used Medina sandstone. While quarrying largely ceased in the 1950s, Medina sandstone legacy can be seen in many historic buildings that we've mentioned, including the palaces in England. I thought this was interesting. This is a man from Erie, Pennsylvania, who wrote this. A fresh shipment of reclaimed Medina sandstone has arrived from a source near Syracuse, New York. This storied stone, formed over 400 million years ago, was discovered during the construction of the Erie Canal in the 1820s and was quickly recognized as a high-quality building material, as well as used for street work. Quarried for over a century in Orleans County, New York, between Buffalo and Rochester, it once was shipped around the world. Erie is home to many Medina sandstone landmarks, including several Kidder Architects projects, such as the Watson-Kurtz Mansion and Carriage House, the Galbraith Mansion, home of the Women's Club of Erie, Carter Shannon House, and the Olds Norman House, where this latest shipment will help us restore deteriorated sills and foundation networks. Since Medina is no longer quarried, all restoration work relies on reclaimed stone, typically from old street curbs. Most of the quarries were closed around World War I. Scroll down to see how the weathering can toll on a stone windowsill. That was from Erie, Pennsylvania. I grew up about 15 miles from Erie, Pennsylvania. And so it really caught my eye when I saw they're talking about Medina sandstone where I live now. So that was Dee's ego that put that on. From Buckingham Palace and Buffalo's Richardson Homestead Complex, in the streets of Havana, the New York State Capitol, and the Ionic Towers of the Brooklyn Bridge, these are just some of the things made with Medina sandstone. Buckingham Palace and the Brooklyn Bridge used that rock in connection that it goes back nearly 2 centuries to the fields of Orleans County. It was discovered when the Erie Canal was dug through Medina. By the mid-19th century, most of the quarries actually in Albion, Halberton, and Holly part of the county, but the first commercial quarry to open was in Medina, started by John Ryan in 1837. And it became known as Medina Sandstone. There is a Medina Sandstone History Museum in Medina that tracks the Medina Sandstone buildings. And I have a list from 2013 to 2024 of buildings that they list made from Medina Sandstone, like St. Paul's Cathedral in Buffalo, Richard Olmsted Complex in Buffalo, St. Bernard's Seminary in Rochester, Pullman Memorial Church in Albion, the Medina Armory in Medina, New York. That was just in 2013 they recognized those. And they've got the whole list of buildings that use Medina Sandstone that they've recognized. The latest in 2024 was Charlotte Genesee Lighthouse in Rochester, First United Methodist Church in Penn Yan, Mount Albion Cemetery in Albion, and St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Jamestown. All used Medina Sandstone. The quarries were very well known around here at the time that they were popular. They were the ones that you went to get the building material that you needed. And Albion and Medina and this area was the go-to place to get stone to build with. The first quarry was built by John Ryan. He was born in Philadelphia in 1801. His family originally came from Ireland and had been in this country for a number of years. His father was a veteran of the Revolutionary War and had discharge papers signed by none other than George Washington. John was trained as a master mason, and after arriving in Medina in 1825, he proceeded to apply his trade through the area. In 1836, New York State approved plans to enlarge the Erie Canal. John Ryan was hired as a contractor to replace all the bridge abutments along the canal between Lockport and Albion. About 1823, during the construction of the first generation of the Erie Canal, large deposits of sandstone were encountered at Oak Orchard Creek near Medina. The stone was found to be useful as a building material. In order to complete his contract to replace the canal bridge abutments in 1836, Ryan needed a good supply of stone. He opened a quarry in the village of Medina, just north of the canal. A marker at the corner of Gravel and Ryan Roads identifies the location of that quarry. Ryan later served several terms as superintendent of the western region of the Erie Canal. He also continued to operate his quarry and supplied stone to meet the growing demand created by the influx of new settlers to western New York. The proximity of his quarry close to the canal made it easy and economical to transport his products to markets throughout the country. Shortly after John Ryan opened his quarry, additional commercial deposits of sandstone were developed along the canal east of Medina, near the villages of Albion, Halberton, and Holly. The quarries were generally small, independent, family-owned operations, each employing a few men as up to 200. At the height of the industry, about 50 quarries were open in Orleans County. I think that's remarkable, employing as many as 2,000 men. This was the quarry center for Medina sandstone. As the country moved into the 20th century, the sandstone industry in Orleans County was at its zenith. Large cities like New York, Buffalo, Rochester, Cleveland, Detroit, and Chicago had an ever-increasing demand for stone products. The stone quarries in 1890 were listed. They were in the town of Holly, Hubbardton, Albion, Medina, two in Medina. There was the Downs and Gorman, O'Brien and Company, the Sturaker and Sullivan, the Hebner brothers, and E. Farnan and Ford, Goodrich and Clark Company, Albion Stone Company, Gilbert Brady, Kearney and Barrett, Buffalo Paving, C.A. Gorman, and Noble and Lyle. And that's just a few of the names of the quarries that were in Orleans County. Marcus Phillips, I don't know if you remember Marcus or not, I knew Marcus, did an interview for Local History. And he did a little bit of a, and I'll just read you part of it because I've got several pages here. But this is only part of what he talked about. But they interviewed local people, and I've got them on CD. And then other people, like Betsy Hoffman was one, who took the CD, listened to it, and transcribed it and typed it. And this is one of the typed copies of Marcus Phillips. Back in the early days of the old Erie Canal, Hubbardton had an overhead bridge with approaches on both sides. On the south side, west of the highway, right north of the present house, the back street went right through to the west, and north of that stood a two-story Medina sandstone building, the upper floor of which was used for living quarters, and the downstairs, years during my memory, was used for a meat market by J. Burns. So even Marcus Phillips remembered being told about these buildings being built of Medina sandstone. He says the Medina sandstone quarries, of which Hubbardton was in the center, were coming into their biggest operation about the time I was a young boy. They were operated at first by the English, then the Irish, and the English and Irish giving way to the Italians. So a lot of these quarries brought in immigrants, and they were the quarry workers. The Italians, the Germans, the Polish, most any immigrant group you can think of originally came here to work in the quarries. It was a good job, you got paid well, and you could make money right away by working in the quarries. He also says most of the Italians were Catholic, and there was no way for them to get to Holly or to Albion to attend church. In order to give them a place of worship, the Catholic diocese built the Hubbardton St. Rocco's Catholic Church. It was built of native brown Medina sandstone, the cornerstone which says it was laid in 1906. So still at the turn of the century, they're building buildings with Medina sandstone. Anybody have any questions? I know I threw a lot at you.
Yes.